Once upon a time, in a lush green forest nestled between rolling hills and sparkling streams, there lived a clever little fox. He had a bright orange coat, quick eyes that never missed a thing, and a reputation for being both charming and cunning. Not far from where the fox made his home, in a quiet, marshy area filled with reeds and water lilies, lived a tall, elegant crane. She had long, slender legs, snowy white feathers, and a graceful neck that curved like a river. Though they came from different parts of the forest, the fox and the crane were, in a way, acquaintances. They often crossed paths at the watering hole or when strolling through the meadow, and over time, they shared brief conversations and polite greetings. One sunny afternoon, the fox decided he wanted to get to know the crane better, or rather, he wanted to play a little trick. With a sly grin, he approached the crane and said, "My dear crane, it's such a fine day, and I was thinking, why don't you come to my den for dinner tonight? I'm preparing a very special meal. You simply must try it." The crane tilted her head curiously. "That's very kind of you, Fox. I'd be delighted to join you." That evening, as the sun dipped below the treetops and painted the sky in warm hues of orange and pink, the crane arrived at the fox's den. The scent of cooked food filled the air, and her stomach rumbled with anticipation. "Ah, just in time," said the fox, ushering her inside. Now the fox had indeed made a meal, but he had served it in a very shallow, flat dish. It was perfect for a fox, who could lick up the food with ease, but terrible for a crane, whose long beak couldn't scoop up even the tiniest bit. The poor crane dipped her beak again and again, but all she could do was smear it across the plate. Meanwhile, the fox devoured his portion, smacking his lips with exaggerated satisfaction. "Isn't it delicious?" the fox said between bites, clearly enjoying himself far more than his guest. The crane, though hungry and a bit hurt by the fox's trick, kept her composure. She simply nodded and said politely, "Yes, it smells wonderful, but I suppose I'm just not very hungry tonight. Thank you for the invitation." And with that, she bid the fox goodnight and flew back to her nest. As she glided through the night sky, the crane thought to herself, "That was not very kind of Fox, but I'll show him what it feels like in my own way." She wasn't angry, just wise. She knew the best lessons are the ones people learn for themselves. A few days later, the crane invited the fox for dinner at her place by the marsh. "I have a special treat for you," she said sweetly. "Something I know you'll love." The fox, licking his lips at the thought of another free meal, eagerly accepted. That evening, he trotted down the forest path and arrived at the crane's home, where the table was set with care. The smell of fish stew and wild herbs filled the air, and the fox's stomach growled with hunger. "Please sit," said the crane, smiling. Then she brought out the food, served in 2 tall, narrow-necked jars. The fox's eyes widened. He stuck his snout into the jar but couldn't reach the food inside. He turned the jar on its side, but the neck was too long and narrow. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get a single bite. Meanwhile, the crane calmly dipped her long beak into the jar and enjoyed her meal, savoring each mouthful. The fox sat there, frustrated and embarrassed, licking the outside of the jar while his host ate peacefully beside him. After a long pause, the fox finally sighed and said, "I see what you did there, Crane. That was just like what I did to you." The crane looked at him gently and replied, "Yes, Fox. You see, it's not very kind to play tricks on friends. When we invite someone into our home, we should treat them with respect and hospitality, not turn them into the butt of a joke." The fox nodded slowly. "You're right. I'm sorry. I suppose I needed to learn that lesson the hard way." And from that day on, the fox changed his ways. He learned that kindness and fairness build true friendships, while tricks and selfishness only leave one alone and hungry. He and the crane remained friends, real friends this time, and they often shared meals together, each one carefully prepared to suit both their tastes. And the moral of the story? Treat others the way you want to be treated. Respect goes both ways.